Hey there. Hello, how do you do? My name is Harry Wetzel. Thanks for coming. It's the 80s, darling. It's November 1982. I have just landed in New York. And within 12 days of landing in New York to be an actor, I've got a job. Not an acting job, though. I got a job as a wine cellar. I got a job as extra Christmas help at a fancy booze store on the east side of town. Sherry Lehman Wines and Spirits. My roommate, Rodent, had found an ad, a little note in the Actors Equity office, and which had job notices. Said if you need a job, there might be hiring down at this booze store. So he went and he got a job. And then he came home and said, you got to get a job there. They're hiring. And so I did. And as I said, within 2 weeks of landing in New York by some, set of circumstances, I'm gainfully employed. The odds against that are pretty big. It was really, 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 really lucky. So there we are, working at the booze store. I came to be an actor, and this isn't that. This is selling wine. This is a job that lasts from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Maybe it was 7 p.m. I don't know. At least 10 to 6 days a week. You can't go on auditions after 6 p.m. They don't have them. Very rarely. And I can go on auditions on my day off. Sunday, they don't have auditions on it. So you're not an actor now. You're a wine cellar. And I was a wine cellar for months. All right. You came to New York to be an actor, and now you're a wine cellar. What are you going to do? Well, it's not what you know. It's who you know. One of my great Detroiter friends, Suzanne, she was one of the directors at University of Detroit. She's living in New York now, and she's one of my roommates. And she's like, one of my on and off roommates, part-time roommates, occasional roommates. And she's like, I got a gig in Summer Theater in Indiana, and I'd like to cast you, but you're going to have to audition for the producer of the theater. And I'm like, sure, that's okay. She says, well, this is a show, play called Gemini by Alberto Inarritu. And so I'm reading Francis, and I memorized a monologue, and I went up to Suzanne's tiny little apartment and met the producer, Gary. Very imposing, very lovely, but very imposing individual. I had a pretty good audition. Well, good enough. I got cast. Here's the thing. Suzanne said, now listen, before the audition, she said, now listen, when you come to the audition, Gary's sort of an imposing individual. Don't be too weird. I'll try not. Well, apparently it worked. I got the gig. And so I came to New York to act in Indiana. Well, it's an acting gig, and I'm going to play 3 roles. It's summer stock. They're producing 4 shows, and I'm going to have a role in 3 of them. It's fantastic. So I got to go over the Ritzy Boo store and give them my notice, and I do. I'm going to take off in May and go to Terre Haute, Indiana, where Indiana State University is having a summer theater and a summer stock program. Fantastic. So I give my notice, say goodbye to everybody, pack up a couple of months' worth of stuff, and get on a bus. I got on a bus, and the bus is announcing, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Cleveland, Terre Haute, and Points West. And you go, and Points West? Ugh, we don't even know where we're going. We're just going that way. Won't it be exciting? And points west. I always thought that was sort of magical sounding. Huh? So I land in Terre Haute, Indiana, and I am a working actor. This was a 2.5 or so month gig, and I'm working with my fantastic friend Suzanne. She's brilliant, and there are 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 bring-ins from New York City, and the rest of the company is made up with local university staff members and local actors from the local university acting program, and about town. It was fantastic. It was 4 lovely shows, and first one was Gemini, second one was the Fantastics, and I played Mortimer, the man who dies in the Fantastics. And I had already done the Fantastics in high school. It was my debut in my high school acting career. I played the girl's father, and so I already loved that play. And so when chance came around to play another role, I was very excited. And the next show was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I was not in that. And the last show was a brand new script by the producer, by Gary, called Daddy's Gone Home to Mother in Heaven. An excellent show about the real workings of the head of the family and the head of the Mormon family in the Church of Latter-day Saints. It was a very interesting play, and in this patriarchal society, how the women really, just like in the world, do all the work and run things and keep things going. Anyhow, so there these 4 lovely plays, and I had 3 roles. I played Francis in the first one, a young 20-something like myself, who was worried about his weight and was worried about whether or not he was gay. And it was a lovely show. We had a lovely cast. The fellow who played my father and the woman who played the next door neighbor. Anyhow, we had a lovely company. It was a lovely show. The next show was The Fantastics. I played Mortimer. The next show was Cat. Forget it. I wasn't in that one. And the last one, I played a normal role. I played David Silverstein, a New York reporter. A normal guy who happened to be a New York reporter, but a normal guy. And I don't do normal very well. So that was not one of my better roles in the summer season. But I worked for 3 months, for 2.5 or 3 months as a working actor. And it was fantastic. We worked very hard in the rehearsal process because we had to rehearse 3 shows in tandem from each other. And they had a fantastic set crew. There were 4 very distinctive sets from each other in a 3/4 round auditorium, and each night the set crew would change the set so that the different casts could come in and rehearse the next night or perform the next night. And they'd completely do these complete changeovers in record time, every time, from a backyard with 2 houses and a tree and a picket fence. That was Gemini. The Fantastics, very simple set. It's the Fantastics. It was a platform. But Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was Brick's bedroom. That was a lot of furniture. And Daddy's Gone Home to Mother in Heaven was a complete working kitchen, complete with running water. It was amazing. Anyhow, these 4 beautiful sets got to be acted on by 4 lovely companies. And it was a lot of hard work and a really great time. And I got to be a paying actor. And I go, oh, yeah. And I'm like, Harry, he's from New York. I'm like, I'm from Detroit. Oh, yeah, Harry, he's from New York. I'm like, I'm from Detroit. Anyhow, the summer came to a close all too soon. And I had to go back to New York and look for work. Acting work, maybe. But you got to pay that rent, right? So anyhow, it ended. I got a ride home from one of the company members who was getting a ride home from her mother, and like, well, we're going to Edison, New Jersey. We can take you a ride home there, and then you can train up to Manhattan. It's only about an hour train ride. And I'm like, I love that. We played I Spy on the way back home and everything. My friend Ellen and her wonderful mother. And we got to Edison, New Jersey at night, and I crashed on their sofa. And the next train to New York wasn't until the afternoon. So Ellen and I had to hang around in their house, and her mother had to take off to do errands all day, which was fantastic because Ellen said, "Look, let's smoke marijuana and watch television. There's a new thing on. Have you heard of it? It's called MTV." And I'm like, "No, I never heard of that." And I go, "Well, let's smoke dope and watch that," which we did for like 6 hours. It's addictive and exhausting. I got my fill of MTV in the very first day. Anyhow, it's time to go back to New York, and guess what? I go back to New York. It's a hot August day, and I'm carrying all my stuff. I take the train to Grand Central, and I get on the Double R. I go back to Astoria, Queens. I carry all my stuff, the however many block walk it is from the subway, back to the apartment. I go upstairs, and I didn't call my roommates and tell them that I was coming home. I didn't think of that. I've been preoccupied. So I get home, and nobody's there. And I'm like, oh. There's a note on the dining room / living room table, and it says, it's from Keat, my roommate Keat. I got 2 roommates now. That's Rodent and Keat. And Keat left a note that said, "Gone to Nyack." Yeah, I know. I didn't know what that meant either. Gone to Nyack. 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 All right. There's no note from Rodent. I didn't know what I was going to do. But hang around, and might as well. I'm back home. I check in. I unpack my stuff. Now it's the next morning, and I'm awoken on Sunday morning, my first morning back home, by a bang, 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 bang on the door. It's the landlady with some other lady who it turns out is the witness. Yes. She says, "I have your eviction notice." I'm like, what? She said, "Yes." I say, I've been out of town. You know that, don't you? She says, "Yes, I know you've been out of town. But I know you're back, and that's why I'm here. Your roommate hasn't paid the rent the whole time you've been gone." And I'm like, she says, "All you have to do is pay the rent that you owe us, and we don't have a problem. You've got to the end of the month. You've been a very good tenant so far, so I hope it all works out." She was fantastic, considering the circumstances. So anyhow, I got an eviction notice. So you know what I'm doing? I'm going back to bed. Forget it. This is a lousy way to wake up of a Sunday morning. Anyhow, long and short of that story is, yes, indeed, we did get evicted. And while we were on the way to being evicted, I had to find a job to pay the rent. Well, maybe on this place and maybe on the next place I move. I don't know where I'm going to be living now. So I started to look for a job, and I'm like, I don't want to work in the liquor industry because Sherry Lehman Wines and Spirits was grueling. I just didn't want to go back there. They probably would have offered me a job. As a matter of fact, I went to say hello after I got back, after I was in town for a few days, and I went to say hello to everyone because we were old friends. Like I say, you become thick as thieves with your coworkers. I said hello to Mr. Massoyan and Dean and Lewis and our beautiful supervisor, Sandra, and she said, "Do you want a job?" Oh, I'll never forget that. I could have fallen at her feet and wept because it was so beautiful, a gesture. She knew that she could count on me, and I could have probably come to work the very next day if I wanted. And she was so gracious and so sweet, but I didn't want to work in the liquor industry, and I especially didn't want to work at that grueling, exhausting place. So anyhow, I looked and looked and looked, pounded the pavement all over Manhattan and found a job at a bookstore. Fantastic. This is more like it. I got a job at B. Dalton Bookstore, which is another job that's not acting. And that was another job that took up 6 days a week and didn't leave you time to audition. And then I got evicted. And then I went to work the day that I got evicted. Anyway, I woke up the morning of my addiction. What? I woke up the morning of my eviction. I had already moved everything out. Oh, how about this? That landlord and that landlady were so sweet. They heard the whole story about my roommate rodent not paying the rent and everything. They knew the whole thing, and they knew that I was, just a pawn in that funny little game and story. They said, "Listen, we have an attic upstairs. You can store your stuff in our attic for $50 a month if you need." And I'm like, "Yes!" So I didn't have to find some storage facility and all for my move. All I had to do was move everything that I owned upstairs into this garret attic. It was just an attic. It wasn't finished. But for $50 a month, these people are just, they're just giving it to me, basically. It was fantastic. So I slept on various friends' sofas and even came in the middle of the night and slept in that attic like a squatter for a couple of weeks because I did not know where I was going to stay. Eventually, I got a place, and I'm still not an actor. That's why I came to New York. See, when you get there, here's the thing. You got to deal with the real world. I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to get in a show. And then one day, we'll just wait my name and lights. Yeah, sure. But you've got to pay the rent and buy food along the way. So I'm working at this bookstore. All right. You got a good paying job. Let's see how we can mess with that. So I go to a Halloween party with my dear friend Amy Yazbek. Yes, that Amy Yazbek. A star of stage and screen, absolutely. And she was one of my college buddies. A hilarious and talented woman. And she had a Halloween party. And she and her roommate, Vivian, during and after the Halloween party, convinced me, "Come work with us at the restaurant. It'll be so much fun." So I went and applied at the restaurant, got hired, and then had to go back to the bookstore to give my zero notice. I walked into the boss and I said, "Yes, is it okay if I don't work here anymore? Because I got another job." He said, "Harry, this is the sort of thing that's going to catch up with you someday." I said, "Bye." I went and got my new job. Not acting. Oh, yeah, not acting. I went and got my new job at O'Neill's, fancy restaurant on just off 46th Street or something like that on Times Square. This old, glorious restaurant, old money. There's a beautiful statue in the lobby donated by Lionel Barrymore, Hollywood movie star, and one of the royal family of the Barrymores. Lionel Barrymore himself donated this statue that's in the lobby. And now I got a job there because, Amy and Vivian said, we'll cover for you. And they told the boss, "Oh, yeah, he's been a waiter everywhere. You're back in Detroit." And I said, "Yeah, back in Detroit." Well, that job didn't last but 3 days before I got sacked. "Harry, you don't got enough experience to work in a place like this." And so I had to go look for another job to pay the rent. I wish it would be an acting job that would pay the rent, but the last acting job that I had that paid the rent, I sent it home to pay the rent, and my roommate never paid the rent with that. So it's the beginning of November. It was Halloween when it was November 1st when we went in and applied. It was November 2nd when we got in. It was like November the 4th or 5th when we got fired. So for all of November, I'm job hunting again. And for some reason, I'm not looking for acting jobs. I'm looking for a waiter's job because I was so soured on working in the liquor industry. I didn't want to go back to that. I said, sure, if I could find another bookstore job, that'd be great. But that's where the money is. They kept on promising me, make all the tips. And I'm like, Daffy Duck, tips, tips. Yes. So I keep on looking for waiters jobs. And these restaurateurs can smell fear, I tell you. They can tell if you're a waiter or not as soon as you walk in the door. I might have a tie and a vest and a nice jacket on, a nice pair of pants, even a nice pair of shoes that hurt because I've been walking all over Manhattan looking for a job. I might be dressed well and everything, even have a nice, decent haircut and everything like that. But they're going to be able to tell he doesn't seem like a real waiter, because I never got a job, never got a call back, never got a call from any one of these restaurants. I had my Twilight Zone, the Twilight Zone button on my lapel. One time I went in there and I'd like to apply for a job here, please. And the lady behind the counter looks at me, and she looks at my button, and she looks at me again, and she goes, "The Twilight Zone?" And whenever anybody mentions that button, my knee-jerk reaction is to say, "Yes, my hometown." And she said, "I think you better apply someplace else." And I'm like, "Thank you." I turned around and left. Bye. I don't want to work in a place where they don't have any sense of humor. The Twilight Zone is some of the best writing on television. Richard Matheson is brilliant. Anyhow, I'm out of a job for a whole month before I finally find a job at another booze store. I had been looking at restaurants, and I was finally on the east side of town. I ran out of all the restaurants on the west side of town. I'm on the east side of town looking for a job, and I give up. There was a booze store that had a help wanted sign in it, and I'm like, well, the universe told me that I better come down 3rd Avenue, I better come down 3rd Avenue today, and I did, and I got another job. Not acting. All right. So I was there for a long time. I was there for a couple of years. Still not acting, but then I got another job. And this was over at the Winter Garden Theater, selling cats, full-color show programs, T-shirts, sweatshirts, records, cassettes, books, and buttons. Again, not acting. What did you come to New York for? Well, there are a lot of theatrical people working concessions at these Broadway houses. A lot of the bartenders were actors or directors. And one of the bartenders was a playwright. A couple of the bartenders were playwrights. Anyhow, one of the bartenders, Virgil, tall fellow with this magnificent head of white hair, one of the smartest guys I met in New York. He says, "Yeah, we're doing a show. You ought to come on down." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I got in the company right away of a brand new script called Canned Salmon. It was wasn't written by Virgil. It was written by his buddy Jimmy D. And it was called Canned Salmon, and it was about based on a true story about this guy in Philadelphia, this nihilist bum punk who was thrown in jail for petty crimes and stuff. And while he was in the City Hall of Philadelphia, he made a break for it and ran down the hall, ran up the flight of stairs, ran out on the 10th floor window ledge, and threatened to jump unless they met his demands. And his demands included a pack of cigarettes and a hoagie sandwich. This is based on a true story. So we put together this little ensemble piece called Canned Salmon. And this was the first real acting that I got to do in Manhattan. This was at the Shuttle Theater on 6th Street. between Avenue B and Avenue C over in Alphabet City, as they called it, a rough part of town. Even in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, you got to keep your eyes peeled around here. And 6th Street was messed up. There was a broken piece of sidewalk that was very life-threatening when you walked down the street and everything like that. And when you got to the Shuttle Theater, and you would walk down the Shuttle Theater was in the basement. And when you walk down the basement in the Shuttle Theater, the staircase is only attached on one side. So you better hang on to the left side of the stairs because it would each time you stepped on it. Anyhow, canned salmon was a success. It was originally scheduled to run for 3 weeks. We had to hold it over for 2 weeks. Now, mind you, this was in the Shuttle Theater, which was a very tiny basement. We had around 37, maybe 40, I'm thinking 37, seats. So a full house is 37 people. And a full house in a little tiny basement like that seems pretty full. And we did pretty good. We had a great deal with the owner of the basement. Virgil and Jimmy D had this friend over there. He said, "Sure, I got a basement. Sure, you can use it as your theater. I'll tell you what. We'll sell tickets, and we'll split the money halfway. You get half, and I get half." And that was what we had to pay. So they didn't have to invest. They just knew the guy. All they had to do was, just take half of the cut. And it was fantastic. We even got paid a couple of times. And right across the street, as sometimes there is in New York, in the middle of just a neighborhood, there was a bar. There's apartment, bar, apartment, right across from the Shuttle Theater. So as soon as we got that money, that cute little $20 bill, we ran across the street. We had to spend it drinking it as fast as we possibly could. It was a great deal of fun, and this was the first acting that I had ever done in Manhattan. More acting to come was all I could hope. The Shuttle Theater. I'll never forget. There's more to come about this, by the way. Oh, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Yeah, I said it.